What you are about to hear is going to be 75% serious talk. 20% will be two old guys going down a rabbit hole and telling stories about football and rodeo and being at least 5% funny. Please be aware that we may not be grammatically correct or even sound like we know what we are talking about, but we are trying our best to learn and cope with the cards that have been dealt to us. We believe that we can bring hope to those who suffer and help in any way that we can. This is the Head Rush Podcast with Paul Fraze and Corey Berry.
Welcome to the Head Rush Podcast. I'm Paul Fraze, and I played 11 years in the NFL. And our co-host, Corey Berry, rode professionally in rodeo for 9 years. At the Head Rush Podcast, we talk about everything related to brain trauma and brain health and wellness. We talk about traumatic brain injury, TBI, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, traumatic encephalopathy syndrome, TES, and we also talk about repeated head injury, RHI. We cover how traumatic brain injuries can and will cause mental health issues such as depression, addiction, lack of executive function, memory loss, even suicide ideology, as well as degenerative neurological issues. These symptoms can be found on the Mayo Clinic and Boston University websites under symptoms of CTE. Our mantra is how to cope and find hope. And we focus our energy on finding therapies and sharing hope through education and by raising awareness. And Corey, I know you've been chomping at the bit to introduce our two awesome guests today, so have at it.
Man, we got two great athletes. I mean, talk about just awesome stuff. I'm just really excited to get this one going. Ladies and gentlemen, first, we have a WWF superstar. He played a heel, which is a bad guy, played a heel in the WWF, known as Chris Harvard.
Corey, he was Chris Harvard about 20, 25 years ago. He is now Dr. Chris Nowinski.
Yeah, he's a great doctor. Man, Chris Nowinski is a neuroscientist. He's an author of 3 books. Retired wrestler. He's also co-founded the Concussion Legacy Foundation. I would say he is probably the most outspoken top dog of awareness and bringing forward the CTE
in the world. I would arguably say in the world. See, he's been shouting from the rooftops for many, many years.
He's also co-founded the Boston University CTE Center, where we got Ann McKee coming on next month.
Right.
And Mike Alasko. So, I mean, this guy himself is a leader in CTE. He might have been a headbanger. He played, if I remember right, he did...
Defensive line, right, Chris?
Defensive line for Harvard?
Yes, sir. That is the case.
Yeah, and then he went on to jumping on canvases and banging his head and looking pretty. Now, man, look at him. Man, he's just... And with me being diagnosed TES, and there's 4 stages of TES. There's suspected CTE, possible CTE, probable CTE, and then CTE. And CTE can only be diagnosed post-mortem. I am TES, probable CTE. So, in medical terms, I'm the closest you can get to being diagnosed CTE. And joining him, dude, I tell you what, he's awesome power forward, playing 15 years in the NHL. Kevin Stevens, he's only won 2 Stanley Cups. Man, he played only 2 Stanley Cups. Olympic hockey team, winning the bronze medal in Vienna, correct, Kevin?
Yeah, that was a world championships. I played in the Olympics in 1988, and we didn't medal in the Olympics, but the world championships we did.
Oh, okay. And I mean, he led the league in season 100 points per season for several years. I mean, just a great. We're talking about one of the elite athletes that we only dream of meeting or getting an autograph from. Kevin has a powerful story about overcoming problems off the ice regarding addiction and mental health, and we are excited to dive into this episode.
First of all, really quick, Kevin, and how did you get involved with Chris? Obviously, Chris was in the Boston area, and you're from Massachusetts. How did you guys form a team mentality together?
Yeah, I met Chris. It had to be, I don't know, probably had to be 6, 7, close to 10 years ago, and we came together and we just kind of talked about the different strategies and different things with what's going on with it. I was more on the addiction part of it. He was the CTE, and I had all those issues probably too, like playing hockey. I had many concussions, banged my head. I broke my face on the ice one year. Had major surgery on my face. So I've been involved in all the kind of stuff that Chris was really, really at the forefront for. So so we came together, and my story was a little bit more about the addiction side of it. But I've had those problems, and they're all kind of together, right? Everything kind of falls in the same platform, and we're just trying to figure out the best strategies and what we can do and to help each other and how we can move forward with this.
It's an incredible story. Your story is incredible. We've seen a movie, a short documentary called Shattered, about your life. We saw that vicious hit that you took, and we're going to dig deeper into the mental health and the addiction and what TBI or CTE or supposed or suspected CTE can cause. But Chris, first of all, we know that you recently lost one of your wrestling friends. I think it was Mike Bainey, and we were obviously very sorry to hear that. I think he had a motorcycle accident, but I think I heard you say a few months before he had actually donated his brain, upon his demise, to your work at for CTE CTE research. So I know we know his legacy is going to live on, and so I first met you, Chris, through Keith Ferdinando. Do you recall that? It was a par 3 golf course, a golf outing, and you were very, very generous and gracious enough to come and actually help us raise money for an orphan disease that my son was afflicted with.
Didn't he donate a lawnmower?
He did not donate a lawnmower. A local establishment did donate a lawnmower, and he actually, in the live auction, he got us like $300 or $400 for a lawnmower. He helped us raise a bunch of money that day. So thank you very much for what you did and what you do. But I asked myself, what does a lineman that played at Harvard do when he graduates? Okay, he gets into wrestling, right? I've read your book, your first book, and I figured it out. It's a trilogy, right? So I'm looking forward to reading the next 2. But you talk about your life in of football and then in wrestling, but we want to hear your story. If people haven't seen you or heard your story, it's a fascinating story. How did you go from football and wrestling into what you're doing now, being a spokesperson for CTE?
Yeah, I was having a great time in the WWE, but in 2003, I got kicked in the head wrestling, and back then we used pre-concussion protocols or any sort of discussion around it. So I had essentially just kept wrestling because I didn't know any better, downplaying the symptoms, and I eventually got to a very bad place with post-concussion syndrome and had to retire. But I was very eager to try to get back to work or make the headaches go away. So I spent a long time researching, what was wrong with me, what does it mean when I have a concussion, and realized that, what we'd known in the medical literature for almost 100 years was not the conversation we were having in sports at that time. We were, being told by the NFL, you can get knocked out and get put right back in the game and be fine. And that's just not true. And so I decided to sort of fight back. Like, if I felt guilty that I had just, ruined my brain health, temporarily, it turns out, from choosing to do a risky profession, and thought my penance was trying to prevent people from going down the same road I did.
Well, you do a heck of a job doing that. And I remember the last time I saw you, we were sitting in an owner's box at an NFL game. And I said, Chris, and it was probably 8 or 10 years ago. I said, Chris, and you probably had this discussion with a number of NFL players through the years, but I said, I chose this to play this game, Chris. I knew that ramming my head over and over and over and over again against a 300-pound guy was not healthy for me. And I was blown away. It was so simple what you responded. You said, but Paul, what about those 7-year-old kids that maybe they don't want to play? They're just playing because daddy played college ball, or they're playing because mommy loves football. And it really opened my eyes. And Corey and I have, those sports are never going to stop. The rodeo's not going to stop. The football, hockey's not going to stop. But it took me a while to start hearing, hey, okay, 14 years old, flag football, and maybe after that, contact sports. And we all know, the research is showing the less years that you play, the less, and you can speak of this, the less likely you are to come down with CTE. But how now I was watching you on an Instagram post, and you were saying just the other day, you were saying three reasons why, no football until 14 years old, or flag football. These are the 3 reasons. And then Instagram cuts you off, and I couldn't find it on Facebook. Tell me the 3 reasons that you believe that that age of 14, and I know one of them was the development in the brain.
Happy to talk about it. I remember that a couple years ago post. We choose 14 makes sense to me for a few different reasons. One is that when you're born, your brain, your neurons are not as actually protected against trauma as they are when you're older. That you form a certain type of brain cell that actually coats your long, fragile axons that makes them a little bit more resistant to trauma. And so to start giving children brain trauma and brain damage while their brain is still developing and while they're not protected against it doesn't make sense to me. Then there's the question of how do we play sports at those ages? High school contact sports make some sense because most high school athletes are covered by athletic trainers that are old enough to understand when they might be hurt. Their coaches have some minimum amount of training. There's state oversight through the high school athletic associations. But we look at all those as protections for their health. None of those are in place for young kids. So the idea that, I'm always horrified when I hear a youth football coach brag that their kids don't have concussions, because we know they do, but the coaches aren't trained to spot them, and there's no athletic trainers to help them, and the kids are too young to know they're hurt. They don't say anything. And so it just seems to me like, as somebody who banged my head a ton, I get it why you'd want to do that, especially after puberty and hormones are involved. Like, I get why the guys have to go hit after, but before that, it just makes no sense to me why you give somebody brain damage for nothing. Because if you can't figure out a way to teach a kid positive values and lessons in sports without head trauma, then you're not trying hard enough. That's my thought. But football sort of dominates that. But what's been great, and Kevin, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is sort of the USA Hockey's been really a nice partner on this. They've had a lot of serious discussions around concussion education in the early days, and now they raised the age of checking, and they're sort of they're willing to talk about this. How do you find the culture of hockey is relative to when you played?
Yeah, I think it's a good point, Chris. I think with the youth hockey programs and all the different, and it's a different age groups, right? That they've really changed and they adapted to the head stuff, because the concussions of, as you know, they come all the time, and no one wants to talk about them. Right? That's the biggest thing. No one ever wanted really, except when they have a head injury, to tell anybody. And I think at the younger age, I think they're pushing, like, through the squirts, the peewees, the bantams. They're pushing the checking up. Every year it seems to go up a little bit higher. And I think that's important, because I don't think like you said, they don't need to be hitting at that young age, and they don't know how to hit. They don't really know how to protect themselves. Everybody's kind of just running around. They got face shields on, they got cages on. So, I think all of that stuff is important. And I think even with the college game, like they have these cages on, and there's no fear, right? There's no fear of anybody. When you hit a guy, it's head on. And I think with the cages, I think it helps it. It doesn't help with the concussion. Everybody says, "Oh, you got to protect your face," all that stuff. But I think with the shields, it slows people down. And I think with the head stuff on, you can just do whatever you want. But the hockey has adapted. They have push checking up to an older age, which is great. The USA Hockey has done a good job with that. But I think they can even do more as they get older. I think they can as the college game, and I think they can make some changes there to help too, because the speed of the game is so fast.
So Paul, we grew up in the same culture with football. I think we have similar opinions, but Corey, I have no idea what the youth culture is like in your world. I would be curious about that.
I got on my first sheep, I think, when I was about 3 or 4 years old. I got on my first steer when I was about 8 years old. Got on my first bull about 10 or 11. I got on my first full-size bucking horse at 14 and rodeoed all the way up until I think I was 29. And the difference is, and I make fun of Paul and we goof around a little bit, is because football, you guys do 16 weeks a year. We do it January to December. I mean, 100 rodeos a year, 90 rodeos a year, 80 rodeos a year. I mean, you're going and blowing. And when I've had concussions, like I told you in Lakeside, when I got drug underneath that horse, and when they helicoptered out, the announcer actually thought I died, and I woke up in the ER after the helicopter ride. And, my first thing is, you ain't cutting off my chaps, you ain't cutting my boots. No, that stuff costs money because we pay our own way down the road. We pay our own entry fees. We're not a team sport. So our camaraderie.
Bought these wrestling boots.
There you go. The Chris Harvard wrestling boots, folks. You just saw.
No one's touching them. Yeah.
And so I suffered, what did we think? 10 to 14,000 repeated hits. I probably had 10 concussions. I noticed I had my first concussion I found this out at 6 months old. They banged my head against a steel door on the pickup at 6 months old. But I've had, and I wrestled, I played football, I did karate, I did boxing. My mom moved to Cumberland, Rhode Island, Kevin. And you're talking about a California cowboy moving to Cumberland, Rhode Island. And I couldn't fit in nowhere, so I played a season of hockey. Dude, hats off to you. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Man, no. And I couldn't wait to get...
You just wore a cowboy hat on your nice?
No.
Yeah. I don't understand the rodeo.
Go ahead.
I'm not big on I don't understand the rodeo. I like watching it, but I don't understand that either.
Well, I just found out, and we're close to Fort Worth, and apparently they have a rodeo once a week or once a month, or so. I mean, it's pretty frequent, isn't it?
Oh yeah, at the stockyards they got it once. But you filmed here once when we had the professional rodeo,
right?
And
we didn't go. We didn't make it over there. But
yeah, we're on the winter circuit now. We're the top 3 rodeos in Texas. In Texas right now. Welcome to the Head Rush Podcast, brought to you by the Patrick Risha CTE Awareness Foundation. Karen Siegel, thank you so much. Paul?
So go to stopcte.org, learn about their foundation, and they are sponsoring us for the next year. We are thrilled to have them team up with them and bring awareness to this disease.
So please go to their Facebook page. Go to their website, check them out. Karen is very, very, very willing to work with you. contact her. And if you do know her, thank her for us, or just go on their Facebook page and say thank you for sponsoring the Head Rush podcast.
One of the things that was crazy that when Corey was saying how long he did rodeo and how, when he got it on his first bull and horse and all that stuff, people think it's incredulous. And Chris, you actually got me up to the some of the first clinical trials you guys did to find biomarkers for CTE. And I was 47 years old at that time, and my life changed. My brain chemistry changed. It was like somebody turned a light switch. And interesting, in my rage, oh man, I was 0 to 60. And this time you're going to listen to me, oh my gosh. It was, fortunately, I had not been modeled that domestic violence or, it was okay, because I think with that rage that I felt, I don't know what I would have done. But fortunately, but about 6 months after that happened, I get a call from you, and you say, "Hey, Paul, we're we're trying to find biomarkers for CTE. You want to come up to Boston?" And I was like, "Yeah." When how quick can you get me up there? And so we I wish that, so we through the awareness, one of the questions was, how many times have you had your concussion? I'm like, I don't know. I think I've been knocked out 3 or 4 times. And then they said, how many times have you seen stars, a color purple, had a split second of dizziness? And they listed like 15 things.
Taste pennies.
And I don't know if that was on the list, but and I was like, what are you talking about? And they said, those are all the big word was subconcussive hits back then. Right. And they said, they're all subconcussive hits. How many do you think? And I'm like, I don't, thousands. And I was talking, I literally counted up my training camps from college, from, high school, college, and the pros for 11 years. And I said, okay, I bet I've had at least 10,000, 8 to 10,000. And I thought that was so incredulous that I felt stupid telling people I've been hit in the head 10,000 times. But we now know, some of the studies and the sensors on the helmet, 1,000 to 1,500 a year. Yeah. With the rodeo, really quick, I was like, Corey, every time that horse bucked, and I said, how many times does a horse buck in the 8 seconds?
12 times.
12 times. So he has 24 incidences of head, forward, back, forward. And I was like, you've had thousands and thousands of, and your neurologist
out on back of a horse by hitting the horses.
Yeah.
On my head on the back of the horse while I was riding and been knocked out and then fell off. But Chris, you played organized football 8-9 years. You slammed your head on the canvas in the wrestling ring. Do you suffer any symptoms of CTE?
Who knows? I compare it to the fact that when I was 25, I had daily headaches and cognitive problems, all those things, and I got better from that. And so never quite got back to my baseline. I would say I'm fine, but we just diagnosed. I assume I have CTE. I just don't know if I have symptoms. Yeah, we just diagnosed my college roommate with CTE, who played for the same number of years I did. He passed away.
Wow.
So it's the way my style is. I laugh when you mentioned tasting pennies, because that was one of the things I wrote. One of the things I wrote in my book was just like looking back on the idea that I remember taking so many hits where I would taste blood, and I'm like, geez, if I'm like breaking open capillaries in my throat from this trauma, like what am I doing to my brain? So, at the time it seemed normal because we were all doing it together.
Did you think that?
So
go ahead.
What's that?
Did you think that when that was happening in college?
It was cool. I thought, I really hit that guy.
Right.
Thought it was a moment of pride.
Yeah.
But you see, when you mentioned, just to go back on the rodeo stuff, I haven't seen any studies where we put sensors on rodeo. I doubt the actual repetitive back and forth is causing enough brain movement to cause damage. It's the same conversation we're having in pro wrestling, that the average bump, when you go down and you're actually throwing yourself at the ground, Like, I don't think that's causing brain trauma. I think you have to at a certain level of acceleration, and usually that's going to involve taking a hit to the head. There's not explosion like the military service. So, but it is, football is really easy to study because everybody had the same experience. We all had between 300 and 1,500 hits to the head each year, depending on your position, if you're both ways. And that's why we see this really, straight curve based on how many years you've played. I was surprised with, bringing Kevin back in that, we've looked at 700 football players. We only looked at like 70 or so hockey players, but we saw that same relationship, that it was only 10% of the people who stopped by high school, but it was 95% of those who played more than 25 years. Wow. And so that's just like a lesson for the audience, is that your brain can take some hits, but you can't take them forever.
But you also got to realize, Chris, that Ty Posabon at 25 years old committed suicide, and he's the very first rodeo cowboy diagnosed with CTE at 25 years old.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't. I don't.
And I'm just saying. So I think it's a lot more prevalent. I think it's more prevalent in rodeo than what people acknowledge. It's just us as cowboys. I'm the very first. Jeremy Tanner says I'm the very first cowboy diagnosed TES in the system. And I'm like, are you joking me? And I said, but you know what? We're cowboys. We buck up, we suck it up, and we deal with it. And I've noticed a lot of cowboys deal with it with addiction. They go to the drugs and the alcohol. And Kevin, you can talk about your program with that. But Chris, just real quick, and then I want to get to Kevin, is when you look up the symptoms of CTE at Boston University website, you see about 18 symptoms listed, and most have to do with mental health. We know that the Mac Partman Foundation has sponsored at Boston University a study is being peer-reviewed at this time. 162 kids that died under the age of 30. They all had brain damage, and they all dealt with mental issues. 80% died from suicide. It's in peer review right now. We just got done talking with Bruce and Karen
Ziegel. Yeah.
And Karen Ziegel.
Karen and Doug. Yeah.
And I heard me and Paul were talking, and you said that there was...
We had a conversation, Chris, I don't know, a month ago, and you said there's not a lot of information out there correlating, or not a lot of peer-reviewed studies out there correlating youth, mental health, and repeated head impacts. Is a study like this like the Holy Grail to come? I mean, when it's published?
So I want to ask you, and I've seen your videos where you call out the National Hockey League and say, let's get real, and you call out football. I want to call you out and say, let's get real, Chris. Straight up call you out. Are you willing to say that repeated head impacts in adolescence is causing mental health?
Well, in some people, I mean, that's what we've been publishing for years.
Right.
Because you don't know if it's the CTE or if it's the white matter damage, or, there's a lot of, basically CT sort of carries the flag because it's the one thing that's very easy to visualize and very easy to stage. But, when you start hitting kids in the head, that's what people need to appreciate, is that there's all sorts of things that are starting to go wrong. And then and a lot of that's going wrong in the frontal lobe. The early lesions of CT, the greatest strain to the brain because of the way your brain is shaped, is going to happen in the prefrontal cortex. And that, if you start damaging that, you're going to start seeing behavior change. So that study you referenced, it's not an 80% suicide rate. That's not accurate, but it is a very high cause of death in that group. In part because when we don't necessarily want to link suicide to this when we message patients, because we don't have the evidence to say black and white that's the case. I do suspect a lot of the symptoms people have are impacting them, impacting their lives, impacting their relationships, impacting their work, and there is a very serious connection there. However, studying that through a brain bank is very difficult, and so I just want to say, because suicide is the number 2 cause of death for all people in those age groups.
Right.
And families are more likely to donate when they see a suicide than from an accident.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just in the weeds a little bit. But yeah, there's no question. But the mental health things we see are related to trauma, like or at least some of them are. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, CTE is created by RHI.
So
So-
I'm going to break in really quick because I know you guys got to go, and Kevin, you're wait.
Got to get
Yeah.
together.
So Kevin, I want to hear what you're doing now with Power Forward. I know you have an event in July. You've got your big gala in September. Tell us how you work with the kids, you work with the schools, and then tell us what you're doing.
And tell us your story.
Yeah, exactly. This episode of the Head Rush Podcast is brought to you by our personal doctor and team of doctors, Dr. Mizell DeMayo, and she's with the Paradise Behavioral Health, and we are in the
Brainwell program, which is also part of the Millennium Health Center. Dr. Mark Gordon, you've seen him on Joe Rogan and even on our show, the Head Rush Podcast. And hormones. And Mizell is awesome. We love her.
She's our doctor of psychiatry. She works the Mark Gordon program with the hormones, and she adds her twist of genetics, and it basically is melding 2 wonderful mediums together, and we're getting great help from Dr. Mizell DeMayo.
So please check out her website at paradisebehavioral.com. Look up the Brainwell program. Get involved.
She's sponsoring us. They're sponsoring us for the next year, so we are excited to have them on board and shout the good news to everybody that is watching these broadcasts. So,
is she helping you, Paul?
Absolutely.
She's helping me. So go check her out. ParadiseBehavioralHealth.com.
Yeah, I think the biggest, even with the addiction stuff and the CTE, I think in hockey you see a lot of the fighters. Right? Most of the fighters had CTE and in the suicides that you guys were talking about, and I think addiction comes into play with that. And it's my kind of story. The quick synopsis. I'll tell you how it all happened with me. I was 28 years old, and I had just won 2 Stanley Cups, and things were great. And I was going for our 3rd Stanley Cup, and I made a decision and choice to tie cocaine one night in New York City. And from that point, that decision I made that night kind of changed the path of my life for like the next 24 years. I had never done a drug in my life. I never even knew what addiction was. I didn't know what cocaine was the night I did it. And it just took me down a long, painful, a path, which it took me a long time to get out of this thing. And, I went through the cocaine addiction. I went through the opiate addiction when I retired. And it pretty much, it cost me my career in a lot of different ways. And, I was a first team All-Star. I was going for my 3rd Stanley Cup when I did it. So it's like, it doesn't just pick and choose who this thing has. I had no idea I had that gene in my brain. I had no idea that, I was going to jump on the bus the next day and things were going to be different. I thought everything was going to be the same, but it took me down a dark path for a long time. And, things got tough, and my career got damaged. You can tell my career. I had 7 great years, and I had that night in New York City. Then I had 7 painful years. And it was a struggle. But today, I was able to get sober. For about 11 years ago, and I started this foundation. Me and my sister Kelly Wilson, we started Power Forward 25, which we help people. I think the biggest thing about addiction is awareness, is getting out there and really talking about it. I think that's the most important thing for me is getting to the kids and getting to the younger age kids, and before they get addicted, before they get out there and try things, because you never know. No one knows. I didn't know I had this gene in my brain that was going to take me down this path, but I think it's very important that I get out there and talk to people, and that's what I do. I go to schools. I talk to different groups. I talk to hockey groups and football groups, whatever whatever people I can talk to that will listen, I go out and tell my story. And the best thing about my story, all I have to do, guys, I just have to tell the truth. This is what happened to me. This is what happened to me. It may not happen to you, but this is a choice or decision I made one night, and it changed the path of my life for the next 25 years. That's what I tell them, and I tell the kids, it's if you want to take that chance, then you can take that chance. I was on top of the world. If you wanted someone's life, you wanted mine. Like my life, the only thing I had to worry about every day was getting up and trying to figure out how to beat the Devils or the Rangers. That's a pretty good life, and I was on a team that could do that. I was on a great team, and I made that choice one night, and it changed the path of my life. And that's what I try to do today. I try to get out there and talk to people that, the best thing about when you go to schools and when you talk to big groups of people, you're talking to the kids that don't want to hear it, right? Like sometimes a person that's sitting there that doesn't want to be in that auditorium hears something that might change your life. And if you can help one or two people that day, then it's worth getting out there. And addiction is life or death now. It's not like when I was out there where you could go out and play around with cocaine and all this stuff. You play around with that now, you're not going to wake up the next day, and that's a big problem. So I just, the Power 25, we help people with that go to, I thought the hardest time is when you went into treatment, where were you going to go after that? And where, like, after you get out of treatment, you can't go back to the place where you were before. So what our foundation does, we pay for people for sober living. In Massachusetts, there's a lot of sober living. And what that is with guys or gals, they go into a house with 14 or 15 other people that are trying to do the same thing. It's a sobriety type of living. It's a sober living, and they give them a chance to further their life and move forward. And we pay like 4 to 6 weeks of that, and then they can go on and further, where they're going to go from there. But it's been great. It's been a long haul. It hasn't been easy. I can tell you that much. For me, it's a day at a time. I still have to make sure I work on myself, make sure I stay sober so I can help other people. But addiction's tough, and I had no idea what it was about, and I had no idea where it was going to take me, and it took me down a dark path. And today I'm able to help people, and I think I work in hockey and I work with the Penguins and do hockey stuff, but I think the biggest thing for me is that I can help people, because people help me, and I wouldn't be talking to you guys today if I didn't have the help of other people. So I'm
Kevin,
very fortunate.
I thank the good Lord you weren't a Len Bias story, because Len was not able to help people, and you are helping people, right? And it's powerful.
And it's amazing, because I know with my struggles and my rage and everything that I get, and Chris, I sent you my TES medical report and everything that happens with me. My wife gave me a Delta 9 pin, and we went to Jurassic Park kind of thing and went and saw giraffes and all that. And it's that Delta 9 marijuana, THC, or whatever it is. I don't know. And she said, try this and see if it helps. And it was funny, because I hate drugs, absolutely despise drugs. And I refuse to be addicted to anything because of it. But man, I started sucking on this vape pen, and next thing you know, my wife's calling me Puff Daddy, and it's getting me all wrong. And the next day I'm grabbing it, and I was just all of a sudden grabbing it all the time. And finally I told her, I said, get this thing away from me. Jesus, this is no. And
it can happen quick, right?
Oh man, let me tell you, I couldn't, it was just, whoo. And I'm not big, and I know that there's a lot of people that suffer from suspected CTE that say, go to marijuana, go to mushrooms, go to all this. And I'm not one of them. I don't want it. I do the memetine, I do the galantamine, I do lamotrigine, I do all the enes in the neurology. But I'm also on the Mark Gordon protocol, and I'm doing the pregnenolone. I'm doing all the other stuff, and it seems to be helping. But that's what hope is all about. Is I think the problem with athletes and other people that suffer from this domestic abuse and everything that has been found with CTE is that they don't want to face the fact fact that they may have this. When I found out I had TES, you know, it was, as a man, we fix things. So once I found out, I got suspected of CTE in 2019. 2014, I had a doctor tell me that I could be suspected CTE. 1999, I was diagnosed with cognitive nerve damage. And so when I saw Jeremy Tanner and he goes, TES, probable CTE, it was like, okay, now what do? Now I can fix it. But until then, I'm balking, I'm fighting against it, and it makes everything worse.
It's almost like when your eyes open up. When you are in an addiction issue, I haven't drank alcohol in 7 years for good reason. I drank my share, and it's finally that light switch clicks on. I know we're up against it really quick. We always love to end on hope. Chris, tell us, what you're hopeful about for CTE and where we are right now in research and studies.
Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Millennium Health Centers, Dr. Mark Gordon at TBIHelpNow.org. He signed on with us. You've seen him in our episode 2 with Dr. Mizell DeMeo and Dr. Gordon.
Dr. Gordon's been featured on a movie, Quiet Explosions, a documentary about TBI. Featured Andrew Marr, a Green Beret blast explosive specialist, and they talk about TBI, PTSD, traumatic brain injury. And I've watched that movie about 4 times. And I know Dr. Gordon has also been on Joe Rogan 6 times, so he has something good and powerful to say about TBI, traumatic brain injury. So go to TBIHelpNow.org.
Correct.
And make sure you get in touch with their team. Dr. Gordon also works with the military. Do you want to?
Yeah, he works with the United States military. He's done the Pentagon. He's working real close with them. If you're a veteran and you need help, go to TBIHelpNow.org. Dr. Mark Gordon quit his private practice just to work with the military.
Work with veterans suffering with PTSD.
Right. PTSD, TBIs, and repeated blast impacts.
Exactly.
And if you are a veteran, there's nothing closer to my heart than the people that serve our country and protect our way of right and our way to be able to do this podcast for you. So go to TBIHelpNow.org and get the help you need. Mark Gordon, we work with him on the Brainwell program through Mizell DeMeo. If you go to TBIHelpNow.org, there's a list. There may be a provider in your area in Canada. He's all over. So go to TBIHelpNow.org and check it out.
I'm very hopeful because guys like you are out there spreading the good word, and we'd be willing to talk about this so that more people can recognize what's going on in their lives and get help. We try to give people free support through the CLF helpline at clfhelpline.org so they can find the right doctor, find the right support group, find you guys to have conversations about this in community. And then, I got to give a shout out to all the scientists. You mentioned you're going to have Dr. McKee here soon. The BUCT Center is working so hard, and I'm thrilled. We're going to be announcing a new grant and a big new study in a few weeks. That's going to be just more scientists trying to figure out how do we diagnose this while we're alive, because that's really going to be the key to doing real clinical trials on drugs that may stop whatever's going on in our heads. So guys like you are volunteering for these studies, and that those guys are working hard.
Kevin, give us your hope.
Yeah, I think with addiction, it's just about awareness and people getting out there and sharing their stories. I think we just need to get in front of this thing and keep working at it because, you're not going to rest this thing to stop. We just have to get out there and people like me, and there's a lot of other people that can do that. And just, there is hope, there is hope to kind of slow this thing down. And, we can help. It's powerforward, like I said, .25.com. And we can always help you. We're always there to answer it. So, whatever you need, we're there.
Powerforward25.com. and Concussion Legacy Foundation.
Stand up. We're doing the Head Rush podcast has joined the race to end CTE. And Chris, give us a little bit about the race to end CTE and what that money goes for and what it's about.
Yeah, every year, March to May, we're trying to honor those that we've lost to CTE, which is now almost 500 named individuals, where we share their story to raise awareness. And then a lot of people, we have walks or just receptions to help raise money for the research and help raise awareness of the helpline and raise money to keep it free for people. So there'll be 10 events across the country over the next few months and hundreds of people participating. We have alumni competitions, a bunch of Ivy League schools and Army, Navy, and some other groups that get involved. So thank you guys for being a part of it. We'll help spread the word with you, and we'll get Kevin involved next year.
And Kevin, really quick, I know you have a Recovery Cup in Boston, July 18th through the 20th at the Breakaway Ice Center. Go. Those of you who are listening, go to powerforward.com and you will be able to get all the information.
Powerforward25.com.
Thank you. Hey, and we actually met in one of the CLF. Tyler Ambrose does one of he's awesome, and I met this crazy cowboy in one of those support groups. Kevin, you have anything else to say?
No, good. I appreciate it, guys. Keep doing what you're doing. You guys get your faces out there. We all gotta take our part. We're gonna try to pull this everything, CTE, addiction, at all. It's all under one big umbrella.
That's great. Hey, Kevin, arguably one of the best power forwards ever to play the game. Chris Nowinski, you are the spokesperson, I believe, worldwide for CTE. I know you have done a lot, and you're going to do so much more. So thank you both for being on, joining us, and we're going to raise as much awareness as we can for CTE and addiction and mental health. So thank you guys, appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. I really appreciated you allowing us to have Tyler Ambrose on and talk about the support groups. My wife is part of the Ambiguous Loss, is also part of the caregivers. The support groups are huge. If you need help, go to the helpline at concussionlegacyfoundation.com. Look it up. They'll help you find doctors, psychiatrists, whatever you need. And they really work on making sure it's about these issues and that these doctors know it. They have CMEs at Concussion Legacy Foundation. It's just a great place to go to. I appreciate it so much, Chris, because without you, Boston University sent me to UT Health, but without you giving us the support groups to talk about our issues with people that understand our issues and our suicidal thoughts that I have and how I chase the color purple for no reason, and just everything. So I really want to thank you, Chris. It's an honor to finally meet you, talk to you. I know we emailed a bunch. Kevin, dude, I want to meet you in person, get a signed autograph. I know you don't like our Dallas Stars, but right now we're rocking it. So
Kevin's got to get to the Frozen Four to scout some talent.
He's now scouting for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and you got management coming up, and you're going to go to the Boston College game. They're kicking butt in the Final Four right now. You got some great people you're looking at. And I just want to give a boost to you and the Penguins and the Final Four in New Hampshire, right?
I don't know.
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah, up in Manchester.
Okay. All right, guys.
All righty, guys. You have a good one. Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Guys.
Bye. So, everybody, that was a phenomenal show with Chris Nowinski and Kevin Stevenson, the elite hockey player. So please, we got our website at headrushpodcast.com.
Mm-hmm.
Go to our Instagram, our Facebook, like, share, subscribe. What do you got to say?
Well, the more awareness we bring, the more help we bring, and there's million. There's a couple million that we know of each year that sustain brain trauma, traumatic brain injuries, and they don't know. And there's not a lot of knowledge out there of how to deal with that, and there's not a lot of awareness of that. Your personality can change after one traumatic injury and brain injury. So we've got to raise awareness, subscribe, share everything that Corey said, and jump on the Head Rush podcast, share the news of the Head Rush podcast. This is all about helping people stay alert and stay alive, right? Is that how we end the show every time?
Yeah, by stay alert, stay alive. And, if you think you have symptoms or if you want to reach out and talk to somebody, you can go to the Head Rush Podcast website, look at some of the videos, our emails on there. You can email us, contact us through Facebook. If you're interested about being on the show and you want to talk about your struggles and give hope and awareness, we will look at you at coming on to the show. We're stacked up right now. We got Ann McKee
and Michael Oscar from Boston University.
We got Dr. James Kelly. We got Pete Kennedy and his story, and I got his son Casey Kennedy coming on. We got a lot of great info coming on.
Great info. And when you do contact us at the Head Rush Podcast, we will get you in touch with the right people. We will point you in the right direction. We're not doctors. We're not therapists. We are knowledgeable about where to send somebody who is suffering. So don't hesitate. And you don't have to go through us. You can go straight through the Concussion Legacy Foundation. They have an unbelievable support groups.
A lot more resources than what we got. Yeah. A lot more resources. They're worldwide. If you're in Australia, they can reach you. If you're in Canada, they can reach you. If you're here in America, they got you covered. So reach out, and thank you, and stay alert.
And stay alive.
Have a good day, folks.
This podcast is for general information only and does not constitute the practice of medicine. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard and delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.